Hey guys, welcome back. I hope you're having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The first story is titled, Am I the a-hole for telling my daughter I won't be coming to her wedding? My baby daddy was a narcissistic jerk and was often emotionally abusive to me and made me cry regularly. We had a daughter, Mia, 22F. He left when she was 8, but regularly sent about $1,500 a month to watch her while he traveled the world. Mia would often cry about him missing her birthday, but he would make up by it by sending her consoles and makeup, but it still hurt her that the guy didn't even bother showing up to her birthday. Mia is getting married soon, and we were working on the guest list, and when we were talking about who was walking her down the aisle, she would constantly switch the conversation, and me and my husband asked about it, and she said she wants her bio dad to walk her down the aisle. My husband said, "Bullcrap, I've been raising you forever. It's not fair." And Mia replied, "My real dad bought me a car, he paid for my surgery, and he even sent me money for a dog." My husband looked heartbroken and went out the house and told me he was going to the bar. Mia looked at me and said, "Sorry, Mom, but I want him. I know you and him have bad blood, but I want him to do it. I've been sending letters and he's been sending them back." I then said something I regretted. I said, "If you invite him, I'm not giving you my wedding dress or coming." Mia started tearing up and said, "Fine, don't come," and ran out. Now my family is calling me heartless. Now I feel alone. Comment said, "Not the a-hole. Sounds as if your AH narcissistic ex is working his charms on her and she's buying it. If it happens, he may let her down on the big day. As at least one other person here has said, you should have a quiet talk when things calm down. If you haven't given her the full story about him yet, maybe now is the time to tell it, so long as it doesn't get heated with her again. A nasty slap in the face for your husband, but bear in mind that she's likely being manipulated by a selfish liar who's playing at being daddy. Another comment said, I haven't seen a comment saying this, but is it possible daughter is so starved for her bio dad's love and support that she thinks this is the way to get it? If she picks him over her stepdad for her wedding, maybe he'll finally be there for her and be in her life and love her? It'll never happen, but please stay in your daughter's life and keep an eye on her so you can be there when she's disappointed by her father the next time and the next time after that. And the time after that. And on until she realizes he's not worth it. I don't know what verdict to say. Not a-hole? Another comment said, unpopular opinion, but not the a-hole. Your daughter is grown enough to understand that your ex was abusive, and she's basically disregarding the parents who were actually there to support and raise her for a deadbeat sperm giver who tried to buy her with things. And it worked, apparently. Maybe she'll finally realize her mistake when her oh-so-lovely father won't even show up for her wedding. The next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for not making my son apologize to his mother-in-law after an argument? I, M, 41, am married to my wife, F, 37. I have 2 kids from my previous marriage, B, 15, G, 13. I am Jewish, as was my first wife before she passed. My current wife is not. We have no kids together. My kids have always got along with their stepmom and her family fairly well, until recently. Thanksgiving with my wife's family is a huge affair, and it's the only chance a lot of the family has to see each other during the year. My kids and I do not eat pork, but there are always options for us, or we bring something we specifically can eat, like vegetarian lasagna. Wednesday night, I had dinner with my wife's parents at their place. I should mention that my wife is not very personally religious, although she attends services with her parents monthly. My parents-in-law are very, very conservative-style evangelicals. We mostly don't talk about our religious difference, although I once had to stop my mother-in-law from encouraging my daughter to be baptized. Everything was fine, until the end of the meal when my mother-in-law crossed her arms and said, "See, we told you nothing bad would happen." I asked her what she meant. My mother-in-law said she had mixed bacon into one of the dishes, a casserole, to prove a point to us. I tried to ask very calmly why she would do something like that. My mother-in-law said it was to show that there was no point in following the Old Testament law anymore. I asked my father-in-law if he knew what she had done, and he said yes. He seemed more uncomfortable, but he talked a bit how Christ came to free us from the Jewish law, and that they wanted to show us how we could be freed from the law as well. He has worked as a pastor in the past. By this time, my daughter was crying and left the room. My wife got up and followed her. My son has been growing more observant as he gets older. He's more observant than me or my daughter. He flipped out. He screamed at my parents-in-law that they were terrible people, called my mother-in-law some very nasty names, and said he never wanted to come back. My father-in-law started shouting back, and my mother-in-law started crying. I told my kids to get in the car and then told my wife we were leaving. She told me she would stay at her parents' so she could help with Thanksgiving prep the next morning. I was texting with my wife on TG, and she told me my son is not welcome to come until he apologizes for the things he called my mother-in-law. I told her that's ridiculous, but she is siding with her parents. I told my kids we would not be attending Thanksgiving. Instead, we ordered Chinese and watched movies. My son was fine with it, but I could tell my daughter was down. She missed out on seeing a lot of friends she has in my wife's family. My wife is still at her parents' as of now. I should mention that I, too, am very angry at what happened, and what I feel is the disrespect shown to me and especially my kids. I'm torn on whether to encourage my son to apologize, contingent on a mutual apology to us. Am I the a-hole? Comment said, not the a-hole. Your mother-in-law crossed a huge line. Was it rude for a teenager to swear at his grandmother? Yes. Was it warranted? Absolutely. They're focusing on his bad behavior rather than dealing with how awful and abusive and disrespectful your mother-in-law was. If your wife doesn't see the problem here, you need to leave her. This kind of behavior cannot be tolerated or excused. Be proud of your children for standing up for their boundaries and for not allowing someone else to walk all over them. That's something you want to reinforce, not undermine. Don't participate in your wife's family's gaslighting. Another comment said, not the a-hole. Please don't make your son apologize. I am a Jew who privately thinks the laws of kashrut are silly, but when my observant relatives come over, I bend over backwards to accommodate them. Have you seen the price of kosher turkey lately? Your wife does not respect you or your children. That's the main thing you should be focusing on. I'm so sorry for you. Another comment said, not the a-hole. Your mother-in-law is a vile human being. Fairly standard for American evangelicals, but she definitely stretched the reputation to its limit. She physically assaulted you and your children. Your wife supported it. Honestly, barring an immediate 180-degree turnaround on your wife's part, I think part 2 should be filing a restraining order against the in-laws, sending wife's stuff to her parents' house, changing the locks, and contacting a divorce lawyer. The next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for telling my dad I've had enough and his wife's grief will not change my mind? My mom died when I, 17M, was a baby, so I don't remember her, but her family was a big presence in my life, and I vacationed with them every summer, 2020 excluded. Dad met his wife when I was 7. They were together for 6 months when she told me she loved me, after meeting her 3 other times before that, and she could not wait to give me another mom. I told her I didn't want another mom. She was sad, but said she understood. They married a few months after that, and then when I was 9, she and my dad sat me down and told me she wanted to adopt me and that she loved me so much and her dream was to be my mom. I told them I still didn't think of her as my mom. She asked if I loved her enough to try to give it a shot, and we could wait on the adoption until I was ready. I said I didn't want to. She then said to do it because I loved her. Dad said there was no woman more deserving. I told them I didn't love her enough to let her be my mom. She cried. My dad told me he didn't know why I was lying, but therapy would help me see I loved her. I did go to therapy. I didn't change my mind on letting her be my mom, being adopted by her. So they tried to have a baby of their own. She was not able to get pregnant, but they abandoned the idea of her getting her motherhood dreams out of me, which was good. But she couldn't get pregnant, and so IVF was their next step. I'm not sure on all the details, but they only got enough for one try, and they waited and prepped her so the pregnancy would stick. She made it to 14 or 15 weeks, and then she miscarried 3 weeks ago. It was bad. She was broken, and she ended up staying in the hospital so they could help her. My dad decided that now I need to give her what she wants. That 10 years of knowing her and 9-ish years of her being his wife means she has been my mom whether I like it or not, and I need to start showing her that I love and care about her. He told me the adoption would mean the world to her and would be the biggest help while she grieves. I told him I had enough, and his wife's grief was not enough for me to let her adopt me. I told him I did not think of her as my mom, I did not love her, I was not a toy that could fill her motherhood desire. I told him I'm a real person, his son, and mom's son, and while I don't know her, you can't just ask someone to be adopted to give another person their dream. He told me he was disappointed in me and expected me to be more compassionate and loving to her after all this time. Am I the a-hole? Comment said, not the a-hole. Honestly, it sounds like they've sabotaged her chances of having a healthy, loving relationship with you by trying to force the issue. You can't force someone to care about someone, that's just not how feelings work. They need to start respecting how you feel. Honestly, I do feel sorry for this woman. It sounds like she's been through some serious trauma, but it's not your job to fix that for her. Another comment said, not the a-hole. Oh, duckling, my heart breaks for you. You lost your mom, then your dad and stepmother fell in love with the idea of a perfect family. It was never actually about you. You deserve better from the adults in your life. You are not a bad person for not wanting to be a kid-shaped prop in their lives. I wish you all the best for next year when you hit 18 and can begin to set boundaries as an adult with them both. Another comment said, not the a-hole. I told him I did not think of her as my mom, I did not love her, I was not a toy that could fill her motherhood desire. I told him I'm a real person, his son and mom's son, and while I don't know her, you can't just ask someone to be adopted to give another person their dream. This, OP. This. You are not an emotional support animal as well. You never viewed her as a mother, and simply because your dad and stepmother want it, won't change it. I disagree with one point. You have known her for quite some time now. It does seem to me that you never really wanted or cared for a relationship, but that is still your choice. Adopting will make her a mother on paper, not in real life. My thinking is that they think when your stepmom will be your legal mom on paper, she can get to parent you. That ship has long sailed. You're nearly an adult. The last story is titled, Am I the a-hole for throwing my sister and her son out of my house? I, 35M, am a single father of 3 boys, 10M, 7M, and 3M. Their mother died last year due to ovarian cancer. It's been a rough year, to say the least. My sister got divorced 6 months ago and temporarily moved in with me and the boys. She has a son, my nephew, 9M, who stays with us most of the time. My nephew and my 10-year-old are not the best of friends, but so far, they got along fine, apart from some teasing from both sides. A few weeks ago, my 10-year-old started telling me that his cousin was bullying him and being mean to him. He called him names, pushed him around, took his video games, etc. I talked to my sister many times and told her to talk to her son. We talked to the boys together and things settled down. Yesterday was my 3-year-old's birthday, so my whole family was here and my late wife's family as well. It was extremely emotional for everyone because it was the first birthday since my wife's been gone. The boys, 10-year-old and 9-year-old, started fighting again, and I asked them both to calm down and behave. My son started crying and told me his cousin teased him about him not having a mom. I choked up and asked my nephew if that was true, and he said yes, but that he's sorry. I figured I'd have a proper talk with him and my sister after the party, so I just told him what he said was really awful, and he cannot say it again. I comforted my son, and we went back to the party. Before we cut the cake, my sister came yelling at me, saying I had no business disciplining her child. I told her to drop it and we'll talk later. Instead, she said, "Besides, he's right, kids need a mom." I had tears in my eyes by that time, and she just said, "See, it's even turning you into a kitty." My in-laws were crying, I was tearing up, the kids were upset, just awful. I told her to stop it and just leave me and the kids and the family to cut the cake, and we'll talk in the evening. She said, "Listen, we both lost our spouses, but at least I'm still a normal person." She stormed off. After the party, I told her she has 2 days to pack her crap and leave. She's begging me not to throw her out because she and her kid will be homeless. Am I the a-hole for throwing her out? Comment said, not the a-hole. Your wife died. That's significantly different from being divorced. Good job protecting your children from her poisonous attitude. And crying due to grief is hardly being a kitty, so good on you for showing your boys that. Another comment said, not the a-hole. What the hell is she talking about? Does she have no sympathy? We both lost our spouses. Ma'am, you chose to lose yours. And now it sounds like she's choosing to lose her relationship with you too. She has no right to treat you and your children that way. Anyway, I'm so sorry for your loss, and a belated happy birthday to your son. Sending lots of love. Thank you for watching. I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. We'll see you again tomorrow.